Seth. How are y'all?
We are doing great.
Doing good.
So good to be here, Samson. Thank you so much.
You already know we're about to get in y'all's business. And we got to start with the question that we ask everybody, and that is, how long have y'all been together and how did y'all first meet?
Believe it or not, this year marks the 20-year anniversary of us knowing each other. So we met in summer of 2003. And, you know, Seth made this actually part of his wedding vows, but I met him on my doorstep. I was having a party. A friend of mine had put together a guest list of people. And Seth came as a +1 to another one of his friends. And I opened the door and, you know, it was love at first sight.
For me.
Yeah, that is true. For him, it was love at first sight. So I was a little like, I don't know. Is he really serious? But that is how we met.
So, well, y'all have already started this off a little juicy. So let's get into that.
Let's do it.
How did tell us, Seth, about this love at first sight, and then tell us how that connected you two together. And what was that journey like from love at first sight to sitting here right now?
I remember when Eric opened up the door, like I felt like the world stopped. And I was like, I think I came to and was like, are we all still here? He reached out to hug me and everything.
And I kind of remember his face when I opened the door. He was literally like, I was like, oh, wow. I don't think I've ever had anybody have that reaction to me.
He didn't think I was serious. He thought I was just young and this was just whatever for the moment. We went out on several dates here in Dallas. We were both here at the time, both having moved, Eric from Florida previously, me from Oklahoma prior to that. And that dating relationship at that point in time was important, but also professionally, we were very much tied to our career upward mobility. And so jobs at those times required relocations. And so that dating relationship went from being local to being a long distance relationship across Dothan, Alabama, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Los Angeles, California, Bentonville, Arkansas, and then back to Dallas in 2014, where we then purchased our most recent home together. And if everyone kind of remembers the timeline, right? I think it was 2016 when Obama signed. Was it 2015 or 2016?
2016.
2016 when Obama.
Oh,
no,
well,
2015.
gay marriage
The gay
was
marriage act was 2015.
2015.
That next year. So even we had thought about it during that longer journey, state to state and across the country, marriage was then legal at that point in time and going to be recognized in the state we were in. We weren't going to ever be married and not be in a state where it was not recognized. So then in 2017, 2 years later, Eric found his moments that he thought was perfect for him. We were in Italy, he proposed, and then 2 years later in 2019, we got married here in Dallas and have been here ever since.
Eric, what won you over? You were a little tentative at first. So what did Seth do to win you over?
We went through some difficult years and we went through some great years. The years for us that Seth spoke about with long distance, driven by careers, those were actually very difficult years. But what won me over overall was, even throughout those years of which we were apart, Seth was keeping in touch with my family. Seth was still a part of my life. And no one had ever done that before. No one had ever had that type of dedication to me, to us, continuously. And so, you know, you have to look at it and you have to look at yourself and say, someone with that much fortitude, someone with that much who's going to stick with it, they're not just playing around. They're serious about our lives together. So then around 2014 is when we were like, hey, I'm going to move to Dallas. You move to Dallas. We're going to be, enough with this long distance stuff. We're going to be together. And so we did. we moved to Dallas, we built a home. Home was completed 2016 here in Dallas. First we were doing the apartment things while the house was being built. And during that time together, especially when you're used to living in houses and then you move into an apartment and you're very close quarters with each other, and you really, really, you're like, okay, if I can do this in this small apartment while our house is being built, everything else is going to be great. So 2017 rolled around and I said, you know what? We're going on this trip to Italy. We did Tuscany. When we hit Venice, I'm going to have the entire proposal mapped out. And we did, and that was it. And so I asked Seth on a gondola ride out on one of the canals through Venice if he would marry me. And Seth said,
first I blacked out, just like I did on the porch, to be honest. I did. It all went blank again. Just so we're clear, it went blank. But yes, of course, and I said yes. And I'd asked him, I said, what if I'd said no? And he was like, I would have thrown you out of this gondola.
What were some of the hardest parts about, navigating a long distance relationship and then purchasing a house together? And what were some of the other challenges in between? And how did y'all overcome those?
There is a lot of sacrifice, compromise that was involved that we had to work our way through. And that work our way through sometimes became we're just going to have two separate places here. I'm going to have a place here. I'll have a place here. We'll fly back and forth. We'll split up holidays. Normally we were used to spending holidays with our own families, and some of those things became mixed between, well, I'll go where you are for yours, for Thanksgiving, then you come where I am for Christmas, and vice versa. Thirdly, long distance in general just breeds its own sense of two separate lives in itself. And so now you have your own sense of friends. Eric would always say, I have no idea who you're talking about on this phone. I would be telling him, this is what's been going on all day. And he's like, I just have an image in my head of what this potentially looks like, this person looks like. So there was constantly a sense of what I will say becomes the sense of the unknown, which then inhibits trust. So then you're trying to over communicate because there are just constant gray areas going on with friends, with hours, with schedules, because also we were split across time zones. So Eric was in Central, I was West Coast. So he was up early in the morning. He would call on his way to work. I was still asleep. I would get home late at night. He was already in bed. So it required a lot of coordination, a lot of sacrifice. And sometimes people are looking for relationships to be easy. They're sometimes used to either seeing it be easy or the thought that it's easy because they see what's on the outside. And I would definitely say for these 20 years, it has been the compromise, the communication, over communication, the sacrifice, and those things that helped us overcome those challenges.
You have to get to a point where you choose the relationship first over anything else and let the chips fall where they may from there. We're taught to be strong, independent Black men. And you have to adjust from that independence to being strong men who are supportive of each other and going to be there and putting that relationship first overall. That's what I would say was the shift, because those 5 years that we were, the 20 years that we've been together, those 5 years that we were long distance, that was the chapter we had to get over.
20 years. So in this 20 years, what have been some of your biggest lessons together? And what do you value most in your relationship?
So many people say this when they have a relationship, but it is so true. Trust and communication are literally the biggest two factors that you have to either have or develop. And it's one of those things that you need to go back and constantly challenge and reevaluate. Communication isn't something that you get and then it's done. Like, Seth and I have a date night every Friday night. It's our opportunity to make sure that we have a dedicated time together to download of everything that maybe we missed during the week, even though we spend almost every day with each other. because of that prioritization, that Friday night becomes our night that it is just us, and we're going to talk about us. That's the level of communication that you have to have. And with that comes trust that, okay, what they're saying, this is the truth. I've got no reason to doubt it. You have to have that faith in each other. And it's hard. It's not always something that comes just easy. Again, it's that development from being a strong, independent person to being someone who's loving and supportive of another.
And I think the third is self-awareness. I think I saw just on the internet one time, most adult years you're spent unlearning what you've been taught you were to become who you're truly supposed to be. And so while in your formative years, you're being told everything that you should not be, you're navigating the same-sex loving relationships in a very haphazard way, behind the scenes, in the closet, kind of out. There's a lot of psychology that goes into that. And with that, you get some damage and some trauma along the way. And some of that trust and communication piece becomes learning that, you're not dealing with all that independently anymore. Your own existing history, trauma, damage, et cetera, is also now a part of the other person, because now you all are interacting on a regular basis and vice versa. And being able to help each other work through those things, to be very transparent with you, like I come from a family that when my parents divorced when I was 20, so I kept telling Eric, that's where my happily ever after came from. Like, I'm not going to be in that same position as my parents to divorce. Eric had his own situations growing up along his time that he had. And I think we start to play those things out through our own other activities and engagements that we have, friends, family, relationships, and you end up bleeding on them when you're really just trying to heal. And so kind of learning how to help each other navigate through all of those processes. I know Eric and I've mentioned recently, there's some things that we look back on and we're like, wow, had we known 20 years ago what we know today, who knows how this all could have gone better, faster, whenever, because we're 20 years more mature now than we were then, and can tell other people and see other people that are in relationships lesser years than us or younger than us that are, being able to help them move that much faster. But each individual, where they say two becoming one, you're bringing a lot with that and learning how to not only navigate your own elements, but able to navigate healthily the elements of your partner, and you all navigating them together is key.
Seth, you did mention having to, reshape your mind around both self-awareness and understanding and looking at happily ever afters. Mm-hmm. Were those some of the things that you had to unlearn or refigure out? Or for both of y'all, what did y'all have to unlearn and relearn? And for our viewers, at whatever age they may be, how would you encourage them to recognize things that they may need to unlearn and change?
We can get deep and talk about this way later. That's multiple episodes, because I come from a very deep-rooted Black church family. So there's one element there that then leads down this path for life. And although Eric was also born in the church as well, it was two very different paths. Like, my father is a minister, so I'm a preacher's kid, then both grandparents. So like, it goes deep in the roots. But I actually want to go further to what you said about having to unlearn, specifically not only to same gender loving persons, but then to Black same gender loving. There's a lot of heteronormative stuff that we've learned that we have to unpack. So you walk into a situation going, well, we're taught how the man and wife should act. So then we go, okay, well then when it's man and man, now who's the man? Who's the girl? So if you are dominant, are you submissive? There's all of these things that start to just kind of unpack themselves. Same if we're multiracial relationships. If you're from an area where that's not the norm or you don't see that. I moved to Seattle, as I mentioned earlier, where I saw more multiracial couples than same ethnicity couples, and to see them interact very different. And so it's almost, we have to kind of embrace the concept of every story is going to be different. Every chapter is going to be different. Sometimes people say, people have a type. And I feel like that just tells me potentially you just haven't lived long enough to date around, relationship around enough to actually see what's out there. Because if every person that you've dated along the way always look the same, you have no idea the world that's out there. So I challenge you to look at what are the normatives that you were taught as a child, whether that be socio-political, religious, and you've got to look at, does that fit your current scenario, or based on where you're trying to go with your life, you need to modify that. So I just challenge everybody to be open to being aware, self-aware, as we mentioned earlier, of some of the norms that they were taught, and recognize they were probably norms for you locally where you were. How do you open yourself up to what else is out there in the world? Because those situations will engender you to learn new and different things. And you'll say, I do like this. I don't like that. I like it when they treat me like this. I don't like it. The world expects this of me. I'm not going to give the world that. And then you become who you have unlearned yourself to now learn to be.
So many of us are not taught how to love someone, especially within the Black community, another person of the same gender. We're just not, we don't see examples of it. We don't, it's not encouraged within our homes. In fact, it's discouraged. You're perceived as weak if that's what you are doing. So we do what we can. So many times we end up in what I would call transactional relationships when we enter into gay relationships at first. It's like, well, here's what I have to do to make you love me. Here's what I have to do. I'm going to just go a little bit deeper here. Here's what, so many times we enter into these transactional relationships in which we have to try to prove to someone that we love them. We have to, we go into, I don't feel I deserve love because I've been told as a gay man, I don't deserve love. I see no examples, positive examples that say I deserve this. So I then must transact to get that type of love. And you see that, I see it so many times in younger Black gay couples that are out there, where they feel like if the love comes too easy, it's not right.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, oh, no. And what they're really saying is, I'm not used to having that type of love that I don't have to work for, that I'm not open to receiving love unless I feel that it's been through blood, sweat, tears, and trauma in order to get there. And what I would encourage so many young couples that are out there is accept love. Know that you deserve to be loved without there being some trauma. Know that you deserve to be loved without you having adversity, or it having to be transactional, meaning you are providing services or money or convenience to someone in order for them to love you. You don't need that. You are a strong person and you are capable of receiving that love openly and freely without there being a cost or penalty involved. And when I look at people who they're like, oh, I don't think there's anybody out there for me. I don't think I can ever find someone that would love me. There have been people that have come across their paths that have loved them, but because it's been so easy, they think there must be something wrong in it. They find fault and they shy away from that.
Or again, that's self-awareness in that piece too. They might not have been ready to receive the love from that person at that time. There's a couple of layers of that.
But that's my point, is that they put up those internal blocks. Instead of being able to receive that love openly, they immediately perceive there must be something wrong, or they're looking for something wrong. And then the slightest thing that happens, like, this is an exaggeration, but they wore the wrong color shirt today, or I don't like the shoes that they wear. They must be wrong for me. And then they step away.
You want to, of course, have deal breakers, where you all sit on things of morality, where you all sit on things of your own basic existence and such like that. But at some point, you should get to the point where you've met someone that, to what would you leave them for? And I go back to, that's where people used to say, well, we were married till death do us part. It's a heteronormative we were taught a long time ago. But we say the true relationship is, I'm here with you for life till we both are underground. Then what would be the things that would then make us ever walk away from that? And a lot of people are not dating, kind of moving towards that mindset of, I'm trying to get us to that point. It's, if they mess up, I'm out. If they do something wrong, I'm out. Not kind of looking where they are in their own journey, where you are in your journey. And it's over time, got to get to that point where you're looking for unconditional love.
There's never going to be someone that's a 10 out of 10. Everything's perfect.
In that moment.
And in that moment, they're going to ride you off on their white horse, that sort of thing. There's work in every relationship, and people need to be open to the work.
Spiritually, mentally, financially, whole deal, life planningly, all of it.
Be that transparent, authentic self. Don't sacrifice who you are to get to that point, because that's never going to work. You cannot wear a mask in a relationship. You cannot be someone who you are not, and expect, and have that person fall in love with an image of something, because eventually, like all masks do, it's going to fall off. And what's underneath, when it comes out, it may not be what the other person signed up for. So go into it being that authentic self that you are, no matter how scary it is. Be who you are. And I will guarantee you that there are people out there that will love it and love you for you. But then the other half of that is, you got to be open to that love.
And loving them for them back too.
For some folks, and in this case, some Black gay men, there is a bit of a fear of intimacy and commitment. So, making this work for over 20 years, what are some of the benefits of learning to embrace, emotional intimacy and commitment? What are the benefits of learning to do that and maintaining a long-term relationship?
I think it's irreplaceable when you get to the point where you know someone who has your back, when you are with someone that that by hook or by crook, as we have said, you're just going to get through, and they're going to be there for you. That feeling, like, you can have friends that you feel that way with, but having that with your life partner, with the person that you're married to, the person you see every day, the person who, if they're doing well, you're doing well. If you're doing well, they're doing well. Like, there isn't a, there isn't a separate financial plan. There isn't a separate life plan. There isn't a separate social plan. There are, not that we don't have our own friends, we do, but there's always a coming together and a commonality of communication that is our basis for our life. And knowing that you have somebody with that level of commitment in your corner, unless you're willing to do all the other things we talked about, the sacrifice, the communication, the honesty, the transparency, and get there, you may never know that deep of a level of commitment.
I'll cut it in a sentence. Life is hard. It has not gotten any easier generation to generation, decade to decade, from our parents to our grandparents. And I sometimes look back at our grandparents, and they're like, they didn't have the perfect relationships, but they learned to live a life together that was the better of them two both, and the better for their kids and their grandkids, everyone else. And again, you go to work, you're at work more often than you are usually at your home, and that's never easy. So then you've got friendships that are up and down at any point in time. That's never easy. You're dealing with the world around us. That's never easy. So at what point in time do you find some place where you're like, this is actually where I can come to my safe space? And, you know, you want to be able to come home and say you lay down next to, or you're coming home and going to dinner with, or the person that's able, when you feel you have no one else that you can share things with, that there is someone along this journey with you that you can share everything with. I don't feel that life's going to get any easier for us. We're about to move to a next stage. Gray hairs coming, bodies, the extended warranties are going away on our bodies. So now we got to, retirements are coming. So it's like, that'll be a whole new chapter to explore in a brand new way. And I would rather us do that together than me doing it separately and learning how to navigate that space.
So we end our conversations with quotes. We usually go with the Joseph Beam quote, but today we'll go with the quote from another contemporary writer that I really appreciate named Ivan Nehru, who has a quote that says, "For the Black boy loving another Black boy, be patient with yourself and be patient with him. They don't teach this kind of love."
Recently just shared that quote with each other. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's, I would say that's been the overarching theme of what we've been talking about this entire time, is that
Yes.
we grow up and we are not taught that that's what Black men are supposed to do.
And could be successful at it.
That's exactly right. It's discouraged. It's looked on as weak. It's looked on as, boy, what are you doing? You crazy? Like that sort of thing. And it's what you would get from friends, family, etc. So you've got to learn to get over that trauma. You've got to learn that you deserve love and be open to that love. And I guarantee, for all of you that are out there that are single and you say there's nobody out there for you, I'm telling you there is, but you got to be open to it. You cannot be a block. You have got to, when that love comes your way, be receptive to it and know that you deserve it.
And be open to being patient, to the quote is what I will say.
Yeah.
You try to rush things. Oh, this becomes a multi-generational discussion, but we're living in the age of popcorn culture. Patience is, you might not find everything out that you need to know from somebody. One, you're not going to find everything you need to know about someone on an app. But I just even think about, I remember the MySpace pages, Facebook dating pages, stuff like that, as these are now getting started, these Bumble things that are happening. You're asking everyone to put 20, 30, 40 years of themselves into 60 minutes for you to, or 60 seconds for you to swipe and like. That's not patience. The question is, did something grab your attention and then you want to go out on a date to see if there is more? Don't be scared of the date. You can literally walk up from that date and say, it's not working for me. That's how we used to do it in the 90s before there was internet. You met somebody, you went out on the date, and if it didn't work, didn't call them back. They didn't call you back, or maybe they called back and you didn't answer. I don't know. When you go out on the date, be okay with letting it just be a dating phase. You don't have to set whatever that time limit or parameter, but until you feel comfortable, the communication and the trust and all moves you to say, do we want to go to any additional levels? But I think that patience comes in a lot of spaces, and be open to everything that just Eric said, and the trust, the communications, the trials and everything, but be patient with yourself to move through the process. Because if you went back and asked me 20 years ago, would I have thought I would be here today? No. And I don't say no, like we wouldn't be together, but I don't think I pictured it in this form. I didn't picture it with the trials. I didn't picture it with the ups and downs. I didn't picture it even long distance when I met him on the doorstep. At that point in time, I probably would have been like, I'll quit my job, let's move, let's go. But being patient for the journey and seeing how the journey worked out for myself, for my partner at the time, for both of us. Be comfortable with letting the journey lead you all where you all want it to go. And that's the real beauty part of it.
That's it.